a sign of monkeypox can be lesions. I have 2 on my face. This one is still developing as well, sort of looks like a pimple. And then that maturity gets worse to turn into this. First time I noticed my symptoms was June 27th, right after Pride celebrations in New York City. And I first noticed a sore in the underwear area, we'll call it. And then over a few days later, I sort of realized that other symptoms I was having included night sweats. I had constant headaches for an entire week where I was constantly popping pills of Tylenol just to sort of get rid of the headaches. And the exhaustion was just, nothing I've ever experienced when it comes to exhaustion. For me, the most painful symptom was a sore in the urethra, in the underwear area. So it hurt to pee for an entire week. And so I would say that besides that one symptom, which was really painful, the sores for me were pretty mild. The hard part about this outbreak is that the lesions sort of evolve over time. So you have one now, and then you might get a couple more in a couple days, and then a couple more in a couple more days. I think it's important to note that the reason that it's spreading within the gay community is because we have really strong social networks, right? And so we go out to the bars together, we go out to the clubs together, and as a group, right, we go to safe spaces for us, and that's why it's been pretty contained in the LGBTQ community. Once it happens to get into the straight community, which it has, it will start to spread more and more because it's not being just spread through sexual transmission. I first went to an urgent care center, CityMD in the city in New York City, and their policy at the time was they will only test you if you had 2 sores or more. I also went to an emergency room the same day who was supposed to be testing and got turned away. And they said, it's probably just an ingrown hair, come back if it gets worse. And then I went back 3 days later because I had actually gotten sores other places on my body, and they ultimately tested me and I tested positive for monkeypox.
In short, we have an outbreak that has spread around the world rapidly. I have decided that the global monkeypox outbreak represents a public health emergency of international concern.
We know something about this virus, that we have a vaccine. We know how to treat it. But despite that, people are having to wait in line for 8 hours for a vaccine if they can even get one.
I could not get vaccinated at the time when I got monkeypox. Vaccines weren't available. It was not a thing. I was one of the first 111 cases in New York City that was diagnosed. So after that, they started doing these vaccine drives and whatnot. The way that monkeypox testing and vaccination is happening is much more like COVID 1.0, where it's hard to get a test. If you think you might have it, I wish it was being treated much more like COVID 3.0 that we're on versus the COVID 1.0, where doctors don't know any information and can't get you the treatments and things like that. I think that the epidemic needs to be handled much more like an epidemic, right? I think it seems to be a small issue now, a blip on the screen. But I think knowing that it is underdiagnosed, it needs to be handled much more aggressively, such that vaccinations and testing become much more like it is for COVID now.